My name's John Yoyogi Fortes. I'm a Northern California painter and I live in Sacramento. My middle name Yoyogi it is Japanese, but I was born in Japan. My dad was in the army stationed in Japan. I was born in a taxi cab on that street, so that's where my name came from. I didn't appropriate that name till I was probably in college. I used my mother's maiden name, so I used John Servito Fortes. But I think as I grew as an artist, I also became more confident in my work and who I wanted to be as a person, so I embraced that middle name. As far as my connection with art, I kind of grew up drawing. Maybe it was to pass the time, I'm not really sure, or maybe it was because my dad was in the Army, U.S. Army, and my mom was a housewife, so when he was overseas, there really wasn't anybody there to take me around or my brothers and sisters around because my mom didn't drive. So I think that's where I kind of grew up, kind of connecting with art through drawing. And then as I grew up, I kept drawing, but it wasn't until I was in junior college that I realized that maybe I wanted to be an artist. And I took courses in studio art, and from there I just kept painting and got into shows and into museums, and basically here I am today. I understand for myself that the art world is a game and it's played by a lot of people, but it's really something that you either want to participate in if you're an artist or you don't. So if you want to participate in it, then you try and get your work into galleries, and then they take you to art fairs, and every artist wants to sell their work for a lot of money and become well known. I don't know where. I'd have to think about where I really want to be. I do want to have my work seen by people, but I also have a responsibility that if it's seen, that I know what I'm talking about. When people come to me and say, "What are you doing?" and "What's this all about?" I've used other mediums besides paint, and I'm always drawn back to the act of painting and the scale that I paint in, because I paint pretty big, and the reason for that is it's a very physical size, and when you're painting a piece that big, it's easy for myself to get kind of absorbed into the work versus being at a desk doing something smaller. Typically what I'll do is I'll have maybe something happen in my life, like a little experience that I think is kind of quirky, or someone will say something, and what happens is, because of those phrases or that event, I'll somehow switch it around so that it becomes interesting to me in a kind of a quirky, dark way maybe. And that's what spurs the idea. Then what I'll do is, I have a repertory of characters like smoking monkeys and other. I have this character called a Philbilly. I'll put him in the painting. It doesn't necessarily mean that the things that I'm putting in at that time will remain in the painting, but it's a way for me to kind of communicate with the piece visually. Then from there it expands to kind of the formal aspects of the painting, the composition, and then it grows into a story. So once these images start to develop around the painting, I kind of create this story in my head that still is based in the initial idea, and then I kind of work towards that, and then it completes itself. The image of the smoking monkey came from a period where I was doing paintings based on Filipino culture. Part of that was painting about my grandmother and family and the idea of memory, and then my dad had Alzheimer's, so I created paintings based around the idea of him having Alzheimer's, and these symbols came into the artwork, like a water buffalo. Water buffalo is a beast of burden in the Philippines, so my dad was the dominant person that was working, and then other images came in, like the smoking monkey, because my dad came over as an immigrant, and there was a lot of racism at the time when people coming from, not people, but Japanese, Chinese, and Filipinos coming from Hawaii into San Francisco. So they were called monkeys. The Filipinos were, I know for a fact. So it was a way for me to kind of take this negative character and make it into something that was I don't know if it's positive in my artwork, but it was more of a humorous character. So I appropriated it in a way that worked for me, and that's kind of what it symbolizes. It symbolizes my dad, and is just this humorous character. When I'm not in the studio working on my paintings, I'm either dealing with my family. I have a 7-year-old that's in 2nd grade, so I'm shuttling her back and forth from school, and I help her with her homework. But I also play guitar. So one of the things or the type of music that I like is Delta blues, which is really kind of rootsy. So I play slide, and I just play like Mississippi Delta blues. For me, as far as being an artist, there seems to be a point in your life that all of a sudden you could say, this is where I felt like I was actually making art that was serious. And when you look back on it, you could say, that was pretty good stuff.